Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IDEAS Hive St. Pete. So here we are having a discussion today all about waste. We have two amazing speakers coming to talk to us. We have Kali Rabaut and Amanda Streets, as well as our IDEAS for St. Pete branch manager, Hannah Miller, here to talk to us about how we can reduce our own waste and to create a smaller global footprint in the amount of waste that we produce. So thank you so much for joining us. Throughout this conversation, if you would like to ask a question relating to waste, compost, recycling, anything that has to do with that, we would love to hear from you. All you have to do is comment in the comments below and ask your question. And at the end, our experts can help to answer it. So thank you so much for joining us. We meet once a month, virtually or in person eventually. And we discuss different topics of sustainability. So let's get into it. So every month, we really like to highlight a local business or nonprofit that's doing something in the area of what we're discussing this evening. And for us today, we have Sands Market. So Sands Market is a zero waste lifestyle store. They believe that people can live a fuller, healthier life by reducing the amount of plastic, packaging, and toxins that they have in their products. So if you are in the St. Pete or Pinellas County area and you're looking for a zero waste store, check out Sands Market. They have a website, sands.market, and they also have an Instagram and a Facebook. So support your local businesses. Now more than ever, it's really important to show our local businesses and organizations that are being eco-friendly, that we support them and that we want to see them succeed. So thanks, and hi, Sands Market. Another thing is during this global pandemic, we've been seeing a lot of waste, right? We're seeing a lot of masks that are discarded. We're seeing a lot of gloves that are discarded. So we really want to encourage you to reuse your masks by buying a reusable mask. Here are some different ones that are in the St. Pete area. So again, if you want to support a local business, we encourage you to do that and to reduce the amount of waste even in these crazy times. So what is IDEAS for Us? IDEAS for Us is an international nonprofit organization, an accredited NGO of the United Nations that develops local actions to solve global issues. And the way that we do that is through the IDEAS Hive and through our other programming where we bring people together about eco topics. We focus on 5 focus areas. This is energy, water, food, waste, and ecology. And together, this helps us to guide sustainable practices in our communities and beyond. And so with solar energy, we might have a conversation about renewable energy. Water, it might be about water conservation or even aquatic landscaping, aquatic native landscaping that can help to reduce the amount of toxins in a waterway. Food. Urban agriculture is so important, and it's something that we can do in our own communities, whether it's through community gardens, school gardens, or even at home. Waste, which is the topic of tonight. Waste is a huge, huge global issue, and it's something that we contribute to every single day. And so from our speakers tonight, we'll learn how to know really what's going on in the area of waste and what we can do about it at home. And the last one is ecology. So whether that be learning about native plants, or learning how to get active in our communities with tree plantings. We align all of our Hive events and eco-action projects with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. These are 17 goals that countries can use as a guideline to developing different programs and projects that help to make the world a little bit more sustainable. So tonight we're going to be talking about a few of these. And the way that IDEAS for Us works is that every month we have the IDEAS Hive. This is our place where we can have experts in the different focus areas come and talk to us about local issues that are connected to global problems. In these conversations, we can involve community members. In person, it's even better because we have whiteboards and we can write out ideas and share them and present them with the group to come up with different solutions regarding these issues in our area. And through that, we can create our own programs and projects. So every single month, an Ideas Hive is paired with an Eco Action Day. So for instance, with ecology, it might be learning about native plants, and at the end of the month, engaging in a tree planting. And so that is funded by the Solutions Fund. So our donations, our memberships, all of that goes towards funding our projects in the community. One such project is fleet farming. If you've never heard of fleet farming before, fleet farming is an urban agriculture program of Ideas for Us that transforms the average American lawn into a productive micro farm. So we do this mostly by bicycle in a few select areas of Orlando, Florida. And it's really great because we're using something that really was a wasted resource, which is lawns, right? We have over 40 million acres of lawns in America. And through farming, we can use that and provide food to our community. So that's just an example of something that can come out of the Ideas Hive and that can come out of these conversations. We host our Ideas for Us St. Pete events every first Monday of the month, so that's today. And our Eco Action projects, when we have them in person, they're usually the last Saturday of the month, but we have some remote options available from last month. If you want to look into the shark presentation, we had some really important petitions and action items for that. And just like that today, we have some things that you can do at home so then you can still get active this month with the Ideas Hive. We really need support. So if you are interested in donating, we encourage you to do that. You can go to ideasforus.org and in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the word donate, and then you can support these conversations, support our Eco Action projects. And if you have a business, you can even support us as a corporate social responsibility member or a CSR member. And that comes with its own package, including a podcast as well. And if you become a member, we have different levels of membership where you can receive a t-shirt and receive more communication from us. So if you really love what we're doing, we encourage you to become a member with us. And thank you to our organizing team. We have a team of about 4 of us that works every month to create these conversations and to create these Eco Action projects. So if you're looking to get active and you're in the St. Pete area or maybe the greater Pinellas County area, we'd love for you to join our team. All you have to do is email us at contact@ideasforus.org, and you can join our team of eco people trying to make the world a better place. So we welcome you. Okay, so now I would like to pass the ball to our branch manager, Ms. Hannah Miller. We're so excited to have her on the team, and she's going to be sharing about the topic of this evening. So take it away, Hannah.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to share a little bit more about our SDGs for our topic this month. Firstly is good health and well-being. One of the goals of SDG 3 includes reducing the number of death and illnesses from hazardous chemicals and air, water, and soil contamination and pollution. Reducing the creation and the export of waste can have a significant impact on the health of millions around the world. Although many countries, such as the US, have systems in place to catch leachate, the toxic liquid that is formed from rain and the breakdown of garbage, many countries around the world do not have these systems in place. Leachate, as well as the methane that is produced from decomposition, have the potential to contaminate the soil, and leachate can link into the groundwater, causing massive health concerns. Although open dumps have been banned in most countries to prevent these health and environmental concerns, there are still rapidly growing dumps around the world that do not have the safety standards necessary to protect the surrounding populations from soil, water, and air pollution and the death and illness that comes with it. And then secondly, responsible consumption and production. By 2050, the global population is projected to grow to the amount of 9.7 billion people. As a global population, especially in wealthy nations, we are already overshooting our Earth's resource potential. To sustain current lifestyles at 9.7 billion people, we would need 3 Earths. One of the goals of our SDG 12 to resolve the crisis is to substantially reduce food waste by 2030 through prevention, reduction, reuse, and recycling. Next slide. Which moves us to our icebreaker. I wanted all of you to guess which type of waste we produce the most of globally by percentage. So I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to choose from our word bank what exactly fills up that 44% slot.
So our word bank includes wood, paper and cardboard, glass, metal, other items, rubber and leather, food waste and green waste, as well as plastic. So I know that plastic is one that we typically think of a lot of when we think of like single-use plastics, but other things, I believe that glass is really hard to recycle sometimes, and some other equipment. So when you think about things like cardboard, how many shipments of boxes with cardboard are people receiving? So really imagine what these items look like, and which one has mainly 44% of the entire global waste produced. So we'll give you a couple more seconds for that, and Hannah will share the answer.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. So if you guess food and green waste, then you are correct. I think this really highlights the importance of bettering our system to coming up with creative solutions to deal with the food waste we already create, and then also creating a better system to prevent that food waste from ever being created. And, you know, I also thought that plastic would be a higher percentage, but the accessibility of plastic globally isn't the same as you would think in like developed nations. But as far as food waste goes and how to prevent this massive amount of food waste being created, we have two great experts who can definitely help us with that. So that is going to be Kali Rabaut from Suncoast Compost and Amanda Streets from Pinellas County Compost. Kali is a sustainability maven who enjoys talking trash and eating tomatoes. Kali earned her master's in educational leadership from the University of South Florida, which she uses to inspire, educate, and promote organizations and individuals to lead more sustainable lives. And Amanda Streets is the owner of Living Roots Eco Design and Pinellas County Community Compost. She has a bachelor's degree in elementary education and permaculture design certificate. She is currently studying the soil food web with Dr. Elaine Ingham. Her goal is to change the habits of a generation, meaning to inspire young kids and families to adopt earth-friendly habits from the beginning. Future generations will have a greater understanding of nature and their connection to it, and to each other through simple regenerative practices to steward the earth. And with that, I'll hand the floor over to them.
Hello, happy Labor Day, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Kali Rabaut, and I am the owner and founder of Suncoast Compost. And I'm also here with Amanda, and I'm going to present first, and then she'll wrap us up. So next slide, please. All right, so Suncoast Compost, in case you haven't heard about us, we are a curbside composting company. We basically do the dirty work for you. So we give you the bins and the bags. You put it out by the curb, we pick it up once a week, and then you get finished compost back 2 times a year. We do that for homes, businesses, and zero waste events. We take it to a farm and compost it there. You can also drop off your compost for a reduced rate. And yeah, so we're just trying to make compost easy for you. And so far, we've helped keep 200,000 pounds of food waste out of the landfill the past 3 years. So we're very proud of that. Next slide. All right, I'm just gonna give you a little overview in case you're like total newbie to composting. What is it? Why should we do it? And how can we do it? So let's talk dirt. What is compost? Next slide. So compost is decaying organic matter plus microorganisms, and that equals plant food, the best plant food there is. And then what is composting? That's the act of breaking that stuff down, okay? Next slide. There's so many ways to compost. We don't care how you do it, we just want you to do it. So I'm gonna briefly show you that there's 6 ways that I've been composting lately. The first one, black soldier fly larva. We started out as maggot farmers, we like to say. That middle picture there, the static piles, that's how we currently compost, with really tall piles. out at the farm. Chickens are the best composters. Oh my gosh, they'll eat all your food scraps and they'll give you eggs. Next slide. Bokashi, basically fermenting your scraps. A lot of people in tiny spaces like to give this a go. That middle one, backyard composting. Cities are starting to give out some backyard composters for free, paid for by your tax dollars. And maybe Amanda will talk about how she's helped Clearwater do that. St. Pete has that available, and Tampa is about to do it as well. And then, of course, the last one, curbside. That's what we do. Next slide. So why compost? There's a bajillion reasons, so I'm going to try and just keep us moving along. First of all, in the US, 40% of the food we produce never gets eaten. Okay, next slide. When you put your food in the trash, it does not break down in a landfill. In fact, it creates methane, which is a greenhouse gas that's depends on what study you're looking at, but let's just say about 40 times more potent than CO2. So it's real bad. Of course, we have a lot of waste to energy plants where we burn our trash in Tampa Bay area. But still, we don't want to burn organics because it's mostly water. It's not a good burn to energy ratio. So, I mean, think about when you have a fire and you throw water on it, that's not helping that fire. We're not getting energy from that. And as our population is booming, they don't want, we're basically like starting to run over capacity at our waste to energy facilities. They were designed in the 80s and they were not thinking of how big the population would be. And so some of our stuff is going to landfill when they run out of the room at the waste to energy plants. Next slide. A lot of people like to say, hey, I put it on the garbage disposal, but where does it go after the garbage disposal? It goes to the waste to energy facility. And then some of that stuff does end up in the bay, contributing to things like algal blooms, which contribute to red tide. So we don't want to put down the garbage disposal either. Next slide. Okay, Tampa Bay area, every day, 1.3 million pounds of food waste we're throwing away every day. That's based on the stat that we all waste about 400 pounds of food waste a year. So 1.3 million pounds of food waste a day. Next slide. We also want to compost because we do it for people as well. I really encourage you guys to check out this Instagram, Intersectional Environmentalist. They've given some great thoughts for me, just how this environment and social justice all ties together. You know, when they're thinking about where we're going to put the next landfill, they're not thinking of putting it in some areas. So by creating less trash, we're taking care of our community. All right, next slide. Composting in your backyard. All right, let's go take a look at it. Next slide. It's always good to have a little refresher. This is from the Institute of Local Self-Reliance. Awesome resource. Definitely check it out if you want to do backyard composting. So you want your greens, have a lot of nitrogen, things like food scraps, green leaves, coffee grounds. You want your browns. Guys, I still sometimes have to look at this bit. What is green? What is browns? It's okay. Browns have a lot of carbon, like twigs, wood chips, shavings, mulch, shredded newspaper. You need water, you need air, and you also need time. Next slide. Okay, so what can I compost? We have some different ideas about what you can compost. This is for us, Kali, Suncoast Compost, what we say we can compost. We compost any food at all. We take eggshells, meat, bones, any dairy, of course, veggies, fruits, coffee grounds. If it grows, it goes. Because it's organic, it will all break down eventually. You may have heard, oh, I shouldn't have cheese in my backyard composter. Well, that's usually because you don't have as much volume to get that energy to break down the stuff, and you don't want critters in your compost. But I mean, if you don't care about critters in your compost, or your neighbors don't, you could throw whatever you want in there. So we throw everything in there. Do not put plastic in there. You don't want metals in there. I would steer away from any animal or human waste because there can be bad things in there. If you don't break it down, it can be harmful to your health. All right, next slide. Here's some good troubleshooting, once again, from the Institute of Local Self-Reliance. If your compost has a bad odor, then you might have too much nitrogen, too much food scraps, green stuff, and not enough air. So you just got to add some carbon, add some mulch, maybe turn the pile. If the center of the pile is dry, you probably don't have enough water. Put some water on there. Another problem could be the pile is damp and warm only in the middle. That means your pile is too small. At home, we like to do like a 3-foot diameter compost. So it's a lot of steps. You got to get your neighbors involved. Composting builds community. Okay, last problem, pile is damp, but it won't heat up. You might need some more nitrogen there, some more food scraps to light that fire. So put in some more food scraps. Next slide, please. Okay, and then once it's had time, it's broken down, you can do a little trick where you scoop up the stuff that's finished after a few months, depending upon what you have in there, maybe 6 months, really depends, there's so many variables. But you scoop up some of that stuff and you squeeze it, and just a few drops of water should appear between your knuckles, and it should feel like a wrung out sponge. You're on the right track. Next slide. So composting is one of the easiest ways to address climate change. With all these options out there, there's just no excuse. Next slide. Here's some resources in your community. I don't know if we're able to throw that up into the Facebook comments, but your local extension office, IFIS, once again paid for with your tax dollars, provides monthly composting workshops. I already talked about the city giveaways going on. Institute for Local Self-Reliance has this awesome Find a Community Composter map. So no matter where you are, you can find someone who can help you out and do the dirty work for you. Find a community garden, volunteer there. Next slide. And of course, if you're like, I don't want to, it's gross, let me do the dirty work for you. We have Curbside Composting. It's $35 a month. We'll pick it up just like you're recycling your trash once a week, and you get finished compost back 2 times a year if you want it, or you can drop off for $15 a month, and your first month is free right now. Just use promo code COMPOST2020. Next slide. We also do some business composting. It's a great way to show customers that you put your money where your mouth is. Ranges in price, depends on how much volume you have. We were really proud to work with Black Crow Coffee in St. Pete. We helped them do waste audits, etc., and moved them to be the first zero waste coffee shop in Florida. Woo! Next slide. And we also do events. So of course, it's kind of different right now, but we are doing like a micro event. Like if you're having a micro wedding or something, we can help work with you to make sure that we safely collect your food scraps. Next slide. Okay, help me out, guys. I'm looking for some more community partners. I would like some more drop-off spots around the Bay. So if you're a business, you get a reduced curbside rate, and you help grow the movement. So if you know any businesses that would like to host a drop-off spot, look how cute it is. That's at Community Roots Collective in Tampa. I would love to chat with you. So thank you very much. Next slide. It was a pleasure speaking to you all, talking dirt. Thank you, Ideas for Us.
Thank you. And I have a question for you. Where does, and I'll go back so people can see this, where does your curbside compost, what areas do you serve?
Yeah, most Tampa and some of St. Pete. So if you go on our website, you'll see a little map.
Okay, and you come by every week to pick up the waste?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. So that seems like an easy choice, you guys. If you are just beginning with the composting journey, this is an awesome, awesome company to support. So please look into it. This could definitely help with making your footprint a little bit more green. So Thank you so much for sharing with us and teaching us some important things about the basics of composting and why we would even want to compost. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So next, we will be speaking with Amanda. So welcome, Amanda, and we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Streets with Pinellas Community Compost. We are located in, surprise, Pinellas County, and we help people learn how to compost. Whether it's individuals like you or me who want to compost in your backyard, or composting at schools or community gardens. We also do home consultations and help with some different food system initiatives that might be going on with nonprofit groups or whatever, to set up different programs involving composting or taking surplus food and helping it make it into hands of people who might be able to eat it because it's still good before it makes it to the compost system. Next slide, please. So I want to talk to you all about how you're going to use compost. Compost, as we all know, it's really popular to use in your vegetable garden, but there are a number of other ways that you can use compost too. You can use compost as a soil amendment, meaning like a fertilizer. It's kind of like a fertilizer. It's kind of like a probiotic. So it has all of those nutrients like a fertilizer would have in it, like your nitrogen and potassium and phosphorus and all of this stuff like you would usually see on a fertilizer bag. Well, that's all in your compost too. So it's like this great multivitamin for your plants. And then besides for that, it has all of these really healthy soil microbes in there. And your plants actually need those to be able to absorb nutrients. So when you're using compost, not only are you helping, to reduce your waste or reduce somebody's waste if you didn't make it yourself, but you're doing a really good thing for your plants. So I get a lot of people saying, I don't have a vegetable garden, I don't need to compost. Well, you know what? You actually kind of should compost, because even if you're not growing food, you're still eating food. And if you have a yard, if you have a lawn, or if you have a bunch of tropical shrubs like hibiscus and stuff, those are still plants, and they would also love your compost. So don't worry if you're not growing vegetables. All plants, unless you live in like a sand dune, they want compost. Our urban soils, our city soils, like your yard, they're really bad. They're really degraded. And I don't mean because Florida is mostly sand. I mean because humans have really damaged them. So when a house is built, they pretty much level the property, and then they drive on it, and they compact it, and they build on it, and they put all this really poor quality fill soil in there. And then they put this beautiful grass in and all these plants and stuff, and they say, all right, be beautiful, grow. And the plants are like, we don't have what we need. We're growing in this really bad soil. And then you apply fertilizer and the plants aren't healthy. So then you apply pesticide because the bugs are coming. And it just ends up being what is called like this poison cycle, where your plants are dependent upon these fertilizers and these pesticides and stuff to be able to thrive. It doesn't need to be like that. You can restore this soil. You can apply compost. I was in a training recently for fertilizing during the summer months. And as you might know, you can't apply fertilizer to your lawn in Florida in most counties during the rainy season, June through the end of September. But you can put compost on your yard or your fruit trees or your tropical landscaping or whatever all year, even during the summer. I recommend starting out with like a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch of compost on your lawn. And you might say, that's scary. I don't want to change up anything. Well, you shouldn't be fertilizing anyway, but you could try a test spot in your backyard, or if you have a spot that just is not healthy, the grass looks crummy, it's not growing anything, maybe it's just completely bare, sprinkle some compost. Even if you're not making it yourself, even if you buy it, sprinkle some out there and see what happens. Not only will compost help your plants grow well, it will help prevent erosion. It will help more water go down into the ground. It will help your plant roots grow deeper, and you'll have less runoff and all sorts of problems that you're probably already having in your urban lawn. I bought this house that I'm living in now about 8 years ago, and it's the backyard was awful. I mean, it flooded every time it rained, and the water just sat there. It didn't go down. Well, over the years of composting, I didn't really intentionally apply compost to my lawn, although I could have, but I kind of spilled it all over the place, going from my compost to my garden and back and forth. And now, instead of using a jackhammer to dig a hole in my yard, I can use a shovel. The soil is a lot softer, and that's because those good soil microbes, they did their work. I have grass. Before I didn't have grass, I had this sand that was like full of these like river marks from runoff every time it rained and all these ugly weeds and stuff. I didn't plant this grass. It just kind of showed up, probably because I don't mow the rest of my lawn often enough. But all of a sudden, I have this beautiful grass as well. So give it a try. It's easy and it's cheap. Compost is not expensive to buy. So even if you just do a little bit, give it a try. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So if you are growing food at your house, you can use your compost in your vegetable garden. You can even grow in mostly compost if you want. Homemade compost, store-bought compost. You can buy compost, or you could ask a friend if they have extra, because if your friend is composting a lot, they probably have a lot of compost. I know that I give away 5-gallon buckets of compost to my friends who are starting their gardens all the time. And I'm more than happy to, because I have so much compost at my house. I'm like, I can't use all this. But no, I do not sell compost like Kali does professionally. I just have extra. So a lot of people say, what are you doing, Amanda? How are you composting at your house? Because I don't have a composting facility. I don't have a large farm or anywhere where I'm composting at an industrial or commercial level, or having a truck to transport anything. So I'm just composting my own stuff at my house right now. And occasionally a friend will say, hey, can I bring this by? I kind of let a lot of food rot in my fridge. So I have a regular backyard composting system right now with wire. It's like a wire ring, kind of. Kali showed a picture of it a few slides back of a similar one. I have one of the free bins from the city of Clearwater. Very excited to have that. And then I have Bokashi and a worm bin. I like the worms because they're cute and they're worms. They're cool. My kid likes them. But they also make a really, really good quality vermicompost, which is a little bit different. So because I do grow vegetables, I want to make some really, really great soil, because I don't want to have to buy it from the store, because I have all this waste at my house that I'm making anyway. So I'm trying to reuse it. But I want to talk to you all about Bokashi for a minute. Bokashi is something that you might not be familiar with. It's really popular in other countries, but it isn't as popular in the US, and I'm not quite sure why, because it's pretty awesome. You put your food scraps in a bucket, and then you sprinkle this inoculated bran stuff on the top. And you can buy this special bucket. It has a spout on the bottom. It has a little spigot, so you can empty off any extra liquid. And you can put not only all the regular stuff that you compost in your backyard in there, but you can also compost meat and cheese and dairy and anything except for liquid, and like large amounts of grease and stuff like that. But whenever I let something get funky in my refrigerator, like some leftovers that got shoved to the back, I put it in my Bokashi, and that lets me compost more stuff. So I'm not limited to just fruits and vegetables. I also have my Bokashi in my kitchen. So if you have no interest in composting outside, but you want to grow food, or you have a whole bunch of containers, Bokashi is a really great option for you. I also had my worm bin in my dining room for like 1.5 years. And to be completely honest, nobody noticed it at all. Nobody even knew it was there. It was in the corner of my dining room. And it didn't smell weird. It didn't attract fruit flies. It was pretty great. So a lot of people who live in cities will have worm bins in their apartments or something, and it's totally doable. Next slide, please. So I already talked about this part, sorry. Plants are pretty cool. So I want to talk a little bit about how they take in nutrients. So we all know about photosynthesis. The plants make energy from the air, but they actually get their minerals and vitamins that they need from the soil. They get water from the soil too, and they do that through their plant roots. So when you apply all these things like fertilizers and pesticides and stuff, that actually damages the soil, specifically those really great soil organisms that I talked about. So when your soil is healthy, when you use your compost, it helps those roots to be healthier. It helps those roots to grow bigger and longer so that they can take in more nutrients. Have you ever seen any of those pictures where someone has like this plant that they pulled out of the ground and has this gigantic root system? That is a healthy plant because it has more space to take in nutrients and water. Next slide, please. So when you put your compost on your lawn, you're going to be solving some of these problems. Not only is trash a huge problem, like we talked about, water is a huge problem as well. So we want to keep our water clean. We're running out of clean, accessible, fresh water, not only like in places that are desert-like, but also in Florida. And it's kind of shocking that people are able to freely water their lawn until there's water restrictions caused by a drought. Well, your lawn might not need as much water as you think. A lot of lawn problems, like fungus problems and discoloration from lack of nutrients and stuff, are actually caused by too much water, not lack of water. So you might be killing your lawn with your extra love that you're giving it, that extra irrigation. So when you think about what a plant needs, water, sunlight, healthy soil, your grass is also a plant, and it needs those exact same things. And too much water is just as big of a problem as not enough. And not only when you water your lawn too much, you're using water, but you're also contributing to more problems with pollution and runoff and all of these other issues that we're trying to combat, not only with composting, but just in general with our landscapes. It's a serious problem. Next slide. So what can you do? When we, meaning me at home, you at home, everybody at their house, what can you do? You look at numbers like this, you're like, oh my goodness, this is a serious problem. I am never going to be able to do anything. This is a drop in the bucket. And that drop is so tiny. But when you think about it from a different perspective, we live in, if you're coming here, tuning in locally, we live in Pinellas County. Pinellas County is the most densely populated county in the state of Florida. Florida is one of the most densely populated states in the country, and we're surrounded by water. The less runoff that we have, the better. The less trash that we make, the better. Because when we run out of space in our landfill, there's not like another space nearby for a new landfill. It's going to be trucked. That trash is going to be trucked far. So it's going to be using a whole lot of resources. So the more that we, you and I here locally, can do to reduce the amount of food that we waste, the better. Next slide. So when we talk about food waste in the landfill, it's creating emissions. It's creating methane and all of these really stinky smells. When you smell, when you think of the smell in a landfill, it's gross. It's this putrid smell. And if we were to line it up, like consider how much emission is coming out of China and the US, it would actually be third. Food waste is creating just as much emissions as the US, or almost as many emissions as the US and China. Next slide. there's food waste at every level of the food system. And there's more than just food that's wasted at every level of the system. There's all of these other problems that are associated with wasting food. You think about, how is food grown? Well, most food is grown on a big farm somewhere, maybe in the US, maybe in another country, and there's gas and fertilizer and water being used. And then when they harvest it, that takes additional resources, whether it's harvested by hand or by a machine, and then it's trucked or traveled or transported in some way to a factory where it's washed and boxed and cooked and packaged. And there's just all of these different steps along the way. And there's waste at every single level of that food system. Not only wasted food, but all of these other things too. Next slide. Including water. And I keep going back to water. Water is a huge problem. And when we grow food locally, there's a lot less water that's used because you're growing it at your house, you're growing it at a local farm, and it's way better. I really encourage you, if you don't have a garden, it's a really great time to start one. It's September. September, towards the end of the month, is the kind of the most popular gardening time in Florida. I know it's not summer. You know, you think, oh, plant your spring garden like you do up north. Nope, September is the best time. So give it a try. Next slide. So what can you do in your own house to reduce your food waste? About 40% of food waste is actually from a house. So if you think about that in dollars, you're throwing away, or some people are throwing away, 40% of the foods they buy. That's kind of like putting money down the drain. Just directly, food is expensive, especially here. So how could you use more food? I like to make a meal plan. I like to say, okay, what do I have in my house already? What's going to go bad soon? What do I need to eat? And then I figure out what new stuff I need to buy to make what I want to eat. And sometimes I don't get to make everything I want to eat because I have more food than I need. So I want to make sure that I prioritize cooking the food that I have. And it saves money too, because then I waste less. I also keep a giant Ziploc bag in my freezer. And I put all my veggies in there that I might want to use for stocks. In other words, vegetable broth. When that is full, I will put it in a big pot with some water, some peppercorn sometimes, and I cook it for about 24 hours. You can do the crock pot too, and I end up with this wonderful broth that saves money, saves me some food that I would have otherwise just thrown in the garbage or composted. I also try to make sure that I kind of monitor my fridge. If I made extra food, and then probably an attempt to meal plan, I do this a lot, I don't get to it, I put it in the freezer. Especially, I especially like doing that for my lunches because, you know, it's just the perfect amount. Storing your food properly, especially fresh produce, is important. There's a website called SaveTheFood.com that I really like. And then think about using more parts of your food, like broccoli stems or mushroom stems, different parts of the food that you might not typically eat. A lot of those are actually edible, whether you want to shred them up. I like to make broccoli slaw with the stems of the broccoli. That way I'm throwing away less. Even with your garden plants, a lot of the different parts of your garden plants are edible, like cabbage leaves, for example. If you grow cabbage, you can eat the leaves as well, not just the head of cabbage. And then, of course, make sure that you're going through your fridge on a regular basis so that nothing gets funky. So here's what we'd like to challenge you to do. Go ahead and figure out how much food you are actually wasting. So get some type of a container, coffee can, Ziploc bag, whatever. If you have a family, it's going to need to be a bigger container. You know, the more people that live in your house, the more food you'll waste, unfortunately. So just do your normal habits. Just go about your normal week. And rather than putting your food scraps into the trash, put them in this container. Put it in the fridge, store it in the fridge, or even the freezer so it doesn't get funky. And then see how much you made at the end of the week. You could weigh it if you have a kitchen scale, or if you made a lot and you want to put it on the bathroom scale, or you could quantify it some other way, like 1 full Ziploc bag, 1/2 full Ziploc bag. And then if you compost, put it in your compost. If you don't compost, that's okay, just toss it. But try to do better the following week. Try to reduce less. Try to reduce more. Try to make less food waste. And if you do better, great. Maybe try to kind of adjust some of your habits a little bit so that you do make less food waste. And then if you compost, great already. If you don't, check it out. See if you can figure out one of the ways that Kali mentioned to compost. All right.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for presenting on that and sharing some inspiration on how to compost and what we can do and how we can reuse some food items so then we don't even need to be disposing of some of our food. I just love this whole presentation because it's something that we are involved with every day, but we don't even think about it. So I want to reiterate some of the points before we get into our questions. If you are on our Facebook Live right now, and if you have a burning question, please write it down. I already see one from Christina that we definitely will read. But real quick, so I'd like to reiterate this. So when we send our food to the landfill, right, when we're putting in that plastic garbage bag into the garbage and setting it off, that doesn't allow the food to break down, right? Because of the chemistry of the soil or the waste at the landfill. So that's actually part of our waste. Even though we think, oh, it's just an orange peel, it's going to break down. It's more organic, right, than that piece of plastic. It doesn't really allow for that in these landfills, right? The second thing was the garbage disposals. I grew up thinking that it's part of a system and it's properly getting cleaned. But what's been revealed through this is that it's not always going into the right receptacle. It might be going to the landfill eventually anyways, or it might be going into our waterways. So maybe if we have in our sink like a little strainer, so if any food is gonna be going down the drain, it can be caught and then put in your composter, and then you can start to tend your soil. Also, I just like to mention that burning your scraps of yard waste is not a good idea either in bulk because, well, first of all, you create a lot of smoke in the process, but we need the brown part of our compost bins, right? We need the brown mixed with the green. So the green being like your food waste and things that are more alive, and then the brown being the leaves and the twigs and the sticks and everything. So that is part of the whole process. And it's funny because even if we don't garden and even if we don't compost, that's okay. We all come into this, topic of sustainability at different places. But when you start to garden, you realize how much soil you actually need. And so it's kind of like a switch that goes off when you realize I'm throwing all of these resources away when I actually need that, right? And building soil. And so I actually live in a suburban neighborhood, very close houses together, and I have a very small yard. But what I'm getting inspired from this conversation to do is to start telling my neighbors to use my compost bin, right? And to start collecting those items to build soil so then I can use it for my own garden, but I can also give it away too. So I'm going to ask a question that we have from the audience. And then I know that I have some questions and Hannah has some questions that we'd like to ask. But Christina Meek asks, what can we do to influence restaurants to reduce their food waste and or compost? So Amanda, if you'd like to share on restaurant waste.
So I was actually involved with a project with Tampa Bay Network to End Hunger, creating a regenerative community food system. And part of that was helping restaurants divert their usable food that was still fine to eat, but wasn't sellable, maybe like day old muffins or whatever, helping direct that to charities. So that's a really big thing that restaurants can do. And there's nothing really new involved. It's making sure that you're not throwing away perfectly good food that could be eaten. It's also a tax write-off if it's going to an actual like 501c3 nonprofit organization. So that's one thing. Just make sure you're not throwing away good food, first of all, because that's just bad. But one thing that we learned through talking with some of the smaller restaurants was a lot of them actually already have some things in place. Like we were talking to this one Vietnamese restaurant in St. Pete, and they make vegetable stock with their vegetables, so it reduces their bill for the foods they need to buy. It takes a little bit more time in the kitchen, but there's people back there anyway. So they use all that for their soup. So some of the smaller restaurants in particular, they do have some different systems in place. But just helping them to understand that people do care. I like to mention, and not in a pushy or I'm not going to come here anymore kind of way, but just as a concerned patron, like, hey, what are you guys doing? Have you ever heard of doing this? What are you doing to reduce your food waste? Or I see you're using styrofoam. Have you looked at these fiber-based ones instead? Just letting them know that you care because you come to their restaurant.
Awesome, thank you. And also, are there big like restaurant, like industrial food waste options for restaurants, or is it like few and far between?
So Kali with Suncoast Compost picks up from some restaurants, but and there's some arrangements that some community gardens have with some restaurants, and Edible Peace Patch picks up from a few restaurants, but no, we do not have commercial composting other than Suncoast Compost in the Tampa Bay area, unfortunately. So when Kali was giving those statistics about how much food Tampa Bay throws away, unless a restaurant has stepped up to handle it on their own, all of their food goes in the trash.
Wow. So a lot of our waste generated by, the United States or Florida is probably from some of these restaurants or maybe even grocery stores, right? That whenever they have a bad shipment, they're sending them to a landfill and all of that is being wasted, right? So it kind of makes it a big deal for all of us at home, knowing that there's already so much waste being generated, it kind of gives us that responsibility to start reducing our own waste at home, right?
Absolutely. And also to step up and tell your local officials, whether it's city or county, tell them what you think. I know that there's been a lot of talk with local municipalities and counties about how they can solve this waste problem. And I've been in on some of those conversations, and really speaking up as a concerned citizen is very important, so that the people who are making the decisions know what the people who either elected them or are paying taxes to pay them, what you want.
Definitely. So I'm going to let Hannah ask a question. If anybody else wants to ask a question, please leave it in the comments below. But Hannah had some questions for Amanda.
Hey, so I shed a lot and so does my cat, and I heard that you can put some of I guess the stranger, less common things in compost bins too, such as like human hair, animal fur, and dryer lint. Is that true?
So you can put human hair, pet hair, nail clippings, paper Q-tips in there, toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls, white napkins, white paper towels, tissues, as long as they're not too gross. But you cannot usually compost dryer lint or vacuum lint unless you know that you do not have synthetic fibers. So if you know that you are really diligent and you only have wool and cotton and silk, sure, you can compost all that stuff. But once you start getting polyester and different synthetic fabrics in there, what you have is a lot of microplastics.
Gotcha. Thank you for the clarification. And then you kind of already answered this, but I also was going to ask, what like specific legislation can be put in place to like stop food waste at the source? Like I know a lot of grocery stores that throw away food that like doesn't look as pretty or like looks mutated, and like what can exactly can be put in place that people can call their representatives and say like, hey, I support this, let's put it in place?
So Florida is an interesting place. This actually stems from some state laws, state legislation. When the list of recycled items was made, food was not included on that list of recyclable items rather. So there's all sorts of other stuff listed like car batteries and glass, cardboard. So you can recycle those, and those are not included in the trash. Like when you say trash, everything that is recyclable, the state wants you to recycle, and it comes from this list that's in their definitions. But food escapes that list. So when you say, what can we do, or how does this problem get solved? It's a much bigger problem than just putting in a composting facility. So at this time, it really depends a lot on who's picking up the trash for each individual business or location. Now, you and I with our houses, it's probably not a big deal, but if you start looking at processing plants and stuff, and they say we're going to compost, we're not going to need as much trash pickup, that's really cutting into the budget, the income on these bigger independently owned trash companies. And so there's room for them to say, wait a minute, no. This is our trash. We have a contract. We're to pick up all of your trash. Now you're telling us you're reducing our trash by 75%. So you don't have to pay us as much. And now our income is in jeopardy. No. And unfortunately, that is what has happened in the past.
Okay, it's interesting. So mostly like lobbying from these companies?
I don't know a lot about that. I do know that when smaller composting companies like me, like I would love to have a composting facility, but there's a number of things stacked against that right now, including, land cost, and then there's some hurdles like that. And if it's a local trash company, or if it's the city that picks up your garbage and they're okay with it, like, oh no, we want you to compost, we're not going to sue you, don't worry, that's fine. But if you're getting into like some bigger commercial type things, then yeah, that's a huge consideration.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have another question. Megan asks for Kali, do you have resources to start a route in Dunedin and Clearwater?
So I'm going to answer that for Kali. I don't know about her future plans exactly, but I do know that she just put out an Instagram post saying that she was looking to expand in the future, and she is hoping to expand up into central Pinellas because there has been a lot of interest. So as what timetable that looks like, I have no idea, but fingers crossed.
Awesome. Good to know. And also, I think this is a really big growing business opportunity, right? So as some people are transitioning from their older jobs, maybe they were on furlough or lost their jobs, and they're trying to think about a new future for themselves. I'll give an example and a shout out to O-Town Compost in Orlando, which is run by Charlie Pioli, who is one of our favorite volunteers. So he created a business that is like Suncoast Compost, that is a curbside pickup. And also he does some larger scale composting services for like, I think it's like horse farms and things like that. And so like growing food in urban agriculture, because, I started off with fleet farming and farming with us and learning about, how that affects our planet before joining, the greater IDEAS team with the Hive. But what it showed is that compost is really important part of that. And it's a growing opportunity that doesn't really have a lot of competition, right? So maybe if you were thinking about starting a new business, this might be something that you want to offer. So maybe you're offering it in Clearwater or in Dunedin. I hope I I said that right. So we encourage you to start your own eco business. And I have one more question, because I always think about people who, you know, they might be a little bit nervous to start out. They don't really have a background in growing food or gardening or just learning about sustainability, but excited. How do they make one of those apartment composters? Say they don't even have a yard. Amanda, how would they create like a bin in their house that they can compost in? What does that actually look like?
So I recommend choosing either a worm bin or Bokashi. I do not recommend any type of other system indoors. It's just, you need 60% brown materials. That's a lot. So you'd be bringing in, I mean, you may have shredded paper and cardboard and stuff, but that's going to add to the volume really quickly. And before you know it, you'll have a cubic yard of compost in your house before it's done. And that's just not sustainable or reasonable indoors. So you can DIY something with a couple Rubbermaid totes. You can go on Pinterest or look online. You can buy something that's already made. Like I got one of those stacking worm towers. It was about $70 online. And like I said earlier, that was in my house. It was perfectly fine, not smelly at all. If you are going to compost indoors with worms or outdoors with worms, they cannot be in the sun. They need to be in full shade or indoors. So keep that in mind. If you have like a balcony or a courtyard or something, they have to be in the shade. They will cook if they're in the sun. And then you have to have a use for your finished compost. So if you have a small garden or a couple container pots, a worm bin might be the way to go.
Awesome. And I just shared a link for how you can make one of these containers at your house too, if you're interested in that. And Devin, one of our organizers, hi Devin, what he asked or shared is that if anyone lives in Largo, the city will be starting a free composting service soon in the next few months. So that's a really good thing to know. And if anybody has any further questions, we would love to hear from that.
Clearwater just opened up their bin giveaway program. We actually developed their online educational piece for that. So even if you don't want one of their bins, you can still learn how to compost if you're a Clearwater resident by taking that online class, and you can choose whether or not you want the bin. And I do believe Dunedin is also considering a bin giveaway program and looking into that right now.
Awesome. So these bins will probably be the ones that touch the soil, right? In their plastic kind of bin with an open bottom.
The ones that Clearwater has are yes. I don't know what Largo is looking at. And I don't know what Dunedin is looking at either. I know that we talked about some different options, but there's so many different ones to choose from.
Yeah, I think the ones with the open bottom make the most sense because the worms can come up and help to break down the process. So that might be one that people will want to check out. So we encourage you to take action this month. This is our action project for this month is a challenge. We challenge you to compost at home, whether that is getting a container to put in your fridge or freezer. I leave mine out on the counter and just throw any bit of food waste that you have, whether it's eggshells or apple cores, the tops of carrots, etc. Keep that and have the goal of composting with that. So mix that 40% of the green with 60%, correct, Amanda, of the brown?
Mm-hmm.
Mix that together in your composter and or your composting system, and hopefully that will be a good start to composting if you are new to it. If you're not new to it, keep up the good work, and thank you so much for composting. Okay, so just making sure that the connection is still strong. All right, so that's our IDEAS Hive. Please join us on social media. We have a Instagram, ideasforus.St. Pete. We also have our Facebook. We try to put out material throughout the month on the topic of the month. So this month it was food waste and waste really. So we have posted a lot of different educational material. Please like, comment, share, and join us on social media so then we can grow our following and we can grow our impact and how we can spread this information and get people to get active in sustainability. Thank you to our organizing team. We have myself, Hannah, Devin, and Caitlin that are part of our organizers. If you would like to join our organizing team, we welcome you to join our team by emailing contact@ideasforus.org. And that's our IDEAS Hive. So here's our contact information. If you want to learn more about what Ideas for Us is, you can go to ideasforus.org. We also have a YouTube, so you can check out past IDEAS Hives and even our hives from Orlando. So just type in Ideas for Us on YouTube. The same goes with fleet farming. If that sounded really interesting to you and you'd like to learn more about growing food in your front yard, you can follow fleet farming at Fleet Farming on social media, fleetfarming.org, and typing in fleet farming into the YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining us. And that's all that we have with the IDEAS Hive for tonight. So thank you, and we'll see you next month. Bye, guys.